You're welcome.
Sorry about that, Melissa. You
It's
can start
okay.
over.
Yeah, I'm very thankful to have the strength to join the Congress today, despite the circumstances in Haiti right now. And I work for HDR, Haiti Takes Root, which is an initiative that started in 2015 by JP Haitian Relief Organization in Haiti, but known as CORE in the US. So the mission of HDR is to strengthen the climate resilience of Haitian communities by building capacity and coordination for reforestation and natural resource management. We use an integrated and sustainable people-centered approach, and we are the lead on Haiti's largest environmental coalition, the ITVET Coalition for a Greener Haiti, which has over 60 members who gather to share information and learn together while collaborating to meet national climate goals. HCR is really proud to be among the first grantees for the ecosystem-based adaptation funding from the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund. And our Reach to Reef activities include reforestation of a major ravine that starts on the mountaintop in Payan, and support for fishers to help protect coastal and marine ecosystem in the Payan Bondo watershed. To this support from CBF, HDR is leading the innovations on biodiversity and carbon capture superhero that is important to the entire region, which is mangroves. So the activities that we do to strengthen the agriculture and fishing livelihood in the NEEP department is being implemented using a reach to reef approach. We are about to launch a PES program with a selection of 100 farmers in the Payan Bondo watershed. Farmers that are part of the program are currently receiving trainings on moringa value chain and producing seedlings to plant and create a living green belt that will stretch along the largest ravine from Payan to Bondo. So this will have like a dual impact of reducing sedimentation of the mangroves below while supplementing income for farmers. And at the cost, fishers are being provided with technical support to establish a fishing cooperative. Once the cooperative is established and is meeting all the requisite steps to ensure sustainability, equipment and training will be provided, which may include motorboats and other fishing aggregating devices. To complement the material support, fishers are also being convened to share knowledge and learn more about fishing techniques that protect the mangrove ecosystem and respect their role as guardian of the coastal zone. And to increase income and awareness, these activities will significantly reduce the harmful impact of human behavior on the of the mangrove. And a second major part of this project is an awareness raising and movement building campaign. We have launched an environmental club with 4 schools in Bondo. That includes 175 students and teachers. We have also been convening elected officials and government representatives of civil society to raise awareness and design collaborative, realistic strategies to respect existing regulations and national policies to establish governance in the NEEP area. One thing that I wanted to add is that it's been a real challenge for us to implement on the field because for the past few years, Haiti has been plagued with gang violence and constant political unrest. So it's been really hard for activities to be perform in the field and to gather people together with the recent rise of the COVID pandemic. So it's been a challenge, but we are managing and we are adapting to all the challenges. And things that we have learned we've been learning is that we need to involve the local authorities as much as possible and make them an active part of the project. And in that sense, we can ensure that we have like a stronger impact on the community and be more successful on implementing certain activities. And I think for my presentation, that's all. And I will add more questions.
Melissa, thank you. Thank you very much. There's a lot of work that you're undertaking on the ground, and I know that those challenges are real. But I'd like to invite everyone just to keep your questions until the second presentation. So you can note them down, you can put them in the chat if you wish. But now we're going to go on to our next two speakers, and they're going to bring you a duet. One is another Maria, Maria Jose Gonzalez. Maria is a biologist with a master's degree in wildlife management. She has participated in the design and the establishment of the Latin American and Caribbean network of environmental funds. And since 2005, she has been the executive director of the Mesoamerican Reef Fund, whose mission is to drive regional funding and partnerships for the conservation, restoration, and sustainable use of the Mesoamerican reef. Maria's collaborator is Jack Wharton, who heads up the Ecosystem Resilience and the Climate and Resilience Hub at Willis Towers Watson. And her work focuses on enabling communities to manage, protect, and maintain common goods, especially healthy ecosystems. Jack says she's thrilled to be supporting the MAR Fund to implement the MAR insurance program. Ladies, tell us more.
Thank you very much, Maria. And thank you all. It's great to be here participating in this Congress. Thank you very much. We are thrilled to be here and to be able to share with you a bit of what we are doing regarding Mesoamerican reef resilience and how to strengthen it. So the next one, please, Jack. So the Mesoamerican reef is the largest transboundary reef encompassing 4 countries, Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, and Honduras, with over 1,000 kilometers of coastline. It's a biodiversity hotspot, and we share a lot of the endangered and charismatic species with the wider Caribbean. It is ecologically connected and very important economically. It is expected to deliver economic benefits of over $34 billion between 2017 and 2030 if the ecological value is preserved. And as Maria mentioned, we are a regional private environmental fund. One of our initiatives is the Reef Rescue Initiatives that has the objective of increasing the resilience of the Mesoamerican reef and of the environmental and cultural values it provides through 3 general actions. One is instruments for risk management, capacity building, and financial sustainability. And it is in this last one, financial sustainability, where we have been very lucky to partner with Willis Towers Watson for the past few years. Now, just to go a bit over these actions and what they imply, the instruments for risk management involve analysis of legal and policy instruments and support in the development of, for example, risk strategies for the MAR countries to take into consideration the natural capital and the importance of protecting and restoring coral reefs, for example, as well as emergency response protocols to respond to shocks to the reef, such as hurricanes. One example is the post-storm protocol developed by the Nature Conservancy for Quintana Roo originally, and which we are now scaling out or rolling out in the rest of the Mesoamerican reef with TNC. In terms of capacity building and responding to events such as hurricanes, a key issue is creating the emergency response governance. And we are working on that, training brigades and the response groups that will get into the water and do that, first emergency response. And in terms of financial sustainability, we are working, well, we have an emergency fund that has been established and is already operational, and also working on the insurance program, which is where this specific collaboration with Willis Towers comes into place. But actually, the next one, please. All these elements and these actions build into and work in an integrated fashion to create what we are calling the response and resilience landscape of the Mesoamerican Reef. So the policy instruments enable funding and capacities and the governance structure for rapid response. And then the financial mechanisms, such as the emergency fund and the insurance program, provide prompt funding for early action after an event such as a hurricane. And these prompt funds allow the recovery, the timely restoration and immediate response activities that then can initiate the restoration of the environmental services provided by reefs that then provide or strengthen community resilience for those communities that depend directly on these resources. So this is our overall landscape, and all the elements that I mentioned previously, those three actions, really build into it in an integrated manner. The next one, please, Jack. And this is just to illustrate some of the activities that we have undertaken to date. So in terms of response capacities, to date, there are 5 emergency response committees established in 3 of the 4 Mesoamerican Reef countries. And we have already started that capacity building with TNC. But by March 2022, we look forward to having 10 brigades established with 121st responders trained and certified, and also trainers trained and certified, so this process can continue in time. In terms of financial sustainability, the emergency fund was deployed last year to respond in 3 reef sites in Puerto Morelos National Park in Quintana Roo in response to the hurricanes and storms of Gamma, Delta, and Zeta. Approximately $16,000 were granted for the response groups to get into the water and actually take out those emergency measures. The National Commission for Natural Protected Areas of Mexico, CONAM, led the response groups, which had been trained previously by TNC. And due to their activities, over 2,000 coral colonies were stabilized, over 5,000 fragments were cemented, and over 8,000 fragments and coral colonies were propped back, actually reinitiated and charging that restoration process up quite quickly and very effectively. So now I will leave it to Jack to tell us a bit more about the insurance.
Thanks, Maria Jose. So yeah, in terms of the actual insurance program itself, basically, given that hurricanes are now a key driver of live coral cover loss on the Mar as impacts increase due to compounding additional pressures, this Mar insurance program offers a pre-funded framework to support the long-term financial sustainability of that emergency fund and the rapid pre-planned response activities. So in this case, the policyholder, so let me back up. What is parametric insurance exactly? Because this is the kind of financial innovation that allows us to pre-position funds for emergency response costs rather than your kind of traditional indemnification approach, which looks at, say, the value of your house and then makes you whole again. So parametric insurance is a risk financing instrument that pays out a pre-agreed amount to a policyholder according to predefined event characteristics. And that's a whole bunch of fancy words to basically say that we link hazard parameters to estimated response cost needs given different severity thresholds of events. So in this case, given that this is paying out for hurricane damage to reefs, we've established wind speed as a reliable proxy for reef damage, and we're actually able to trigger the amount of response costs that are needed after varying severities of events at different reef sites along the Mesoamerican Reef. So essentially, there are kind of 5 steps to setting up a program like this. First is who actually is the policyholder and who pays the premiums. And in this case, the policyholder is the MAR fund, given that they're able to, first of all, pool the risk across the entire Mar region to the entire reef, and they're connected to the actual reef response capacities at key reef sites. So it's that kind of regional approach with real local involvement. Then the next steps relate to the actual product design itself. So what is covered in this case, it's hurricane risk to the Mar, and it is funding reef response for storm impact. So the product design is underpinned by an index that links storm intensity or wind speed to financial needs, which is the response costs. And then finally, how is the payout managed and distributed, and how is the payout implemented? These are the critical steps to connecting the financial instrument to the actual implementation of genuine on-the-ground activities for real impact and outcomes for reef and coastal resilience. So it's this kind of robust planning and governance related to actual payout distribution that's supported by the MAR Fund and the Emergency Fund that actually allows for these funds to be useful. I'm going to stop there because I'm really looking forward to questions and discussion. But Maria Jose, I want to hand over to you if you have any last words.
Thank you, Jack. Just basically to acknowledge and thank our donors for allowing us to actually design and carry out this process. And this is the German cooperation to the KfW, the International Coral Reef Alliance, the Ocean Risk and Resilience Action Alliance, or ORA, with financial support from the Government of Canada, and just very recently, the INSA Resilience Solutions Fund, which will allow us to pilot this process that Jack has explained. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ladies. That is, I think that you should be the model for the for the rest of the region. We have a couple of questions for our panelists, and I think what I do is, and Ulrika, if you think that's okay, is just start off with those questions first, and then we can take some questions and have some discussion from the audience. What do you think? Should we interrogate them first? We're not interrogating you. Okay, so and Melissa, maybe I'll start with you. So you have presented what you're doing in Haiti, and it involves the green belt, involves farmers, fishers, even school children as well. How can what you're doing, Haiti Takes Roots, how can that be replicated? What's your advice for replicating that or scaling it up to the insular Caribbean? It'd be great to have some thoughts, your thoughts on that.
Yes, this is a pilot project actually, and it was designed with the intention to replicate it to different part of Haiti using a watershed approach. So I would say that to find the funding necessary to replicate it in different part of Haiti. One, it would be access to financing, and also open the network of farmers living in the different watersheds so that they can be connected to agribusinesses in Haiti, and do a market connect reforestation approach like we are doing with the moringa. So we are developing a value chain of moringa in NIP. But if we were to replicate it in other part of Haiti, it would be maybe a different crop, but farmers would still be able to plant a crop that can not only restore the environment, but also they can increase their income, and we can help support that and connect the agribusiness so that they can produce something that can be sold on international market. Like the moringa that we are planting with the farmers, we have an agribusiness Accesso that is going to buy the leaves and the seeds from them, and Accesso will be processing them in NIP and And then after that, they will ship them to North America, the oil and the moringa powder. So one is to find the finances to replicate it, and also to adapt the methodology to different areas in Haiti, and to involve the local authorities as much as possible, and to encourage advocacy so that we can integrate the private sector so that they can invest more into market-linked reforestation.
Thanks, Melissa. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And that finding the finances, it's not always very easy, is it? And I just wonder if you have any ideas. I know that this is only the pilot at this point, but are you thinking ahead to looking at where those possible funds could come from?
Yes, we are looking at different channel of funding, the international organization. We are looking at the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, but other funds from the private sector in Haiti. We are trying to attract the agribusiness in Haiti and see how they can invest in market-linked reforestation so that they can support the production of a crop that they can make business out of, but support the farmers that are producing them, and so that like everyone in the chain can earn a fair income.
Right. Okay, yeah. Great, perfect. And now Maria Jose and Jack, same question to you. How would you replicate what's happening at MAR? How can you scale that up? It's large as it is.
Just quickly, and then of course, Jack, she knows more of the technical aspects of the insurance, but I think it is completely scalable. And we're very excited about this this pilot, but the fact that you're working with hurricanes and wind speed and coral cover as the data that you need, right, to design that for different reef types, that is scalable everywhere. And the fact that we're integrating all the different elements that we think are important, you know, for that resilient landscape, I think that is also scalable. So we are very excited about our pilot in the region, and think that it can be shared and it can be replicated. Yes, funding is going to be an issue to get those aspects started, but I think it can be. And Jack, I'm sure you can expand on that.
Yeah, Maria Jose, thanks so much. And just to completely complement what you said, we've set up the kind of underlying model and all of the data that we're using for the MAR insurance program we've actually kind of pre-populated it a little bit for basically any cyclone basin anywhere in the world. And we've especially been kind of focusing at the beginning in the Caribbean basin. So this is almost instantly scalable. Jose mentioned, and I mean, we're actively looking to support those kinds of replications. So I think there's really, it's the two ends that you need in place. So on the one hand, you need the actual reef response capacities. It's what it's all about. So from that side, there's a protocol. It's ready to be scaled, and there's already some really great lessons, and I believe already some people actually doing this kind of reef response in the insular Caribbean. And then on the funding, on the financial mechanism side, like I said, the model is completely inherently scalable. We've set it up to be that way. And then in terms of kind of policyholders, there are already great institutions in the Caribbean who would be kind of no-brainer policyholders. And on top of that, you have the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, who could play the same kind of risk pooling role that MAR Fund is playing in the MAR region. So it's that connection also between, I think, the national funds and the regional fund that echoes really nicely what is going on in the MAR region.
Perfect. Great. Thanks for that. What Lessons learned. We talk a lot about lessons learned, and I'm sure that you have many of them to share with us. But lessons learned in the design of your initiatives. And I don't know, Jack and Maria, if you want to take this, and then we go to Melissa, if you want to share those with us.
Jack, do you want to start?
Well, I guess my lesson learned is how much you can do kind of putting together, I guess, the more technical kind of finance design expertise and the real conservation partners. So it's been wonderful kind of working with, I guess, all the partners in that space. I also kind of hope that the initiative in general is a good proof of concept. It's taken us a long time to get here, and hopefully other people do not have to take quite as long to get here, because we've kind of blazed the trail. But again, I'll just say it's worth the time to set up the relationship between the on-the-ground implementation and the kind of governance for payout distribution while you're thinking about the design of the financial mechanism, because the shiny financial mechanism is really only as good as the implementation activities themselves.
And I would just like to add that those implementation activities on the ground are only possible if you work with local governments, with the national governments. And it has been great to work with them in the 4 countries, you know, from the very beginning, just them selecting the pilot sites along with other actors in each country, but very, very involved. So, you know, all the partners are involved at all the levels with local governments, local NGOs, academia, etc., working together. That has been very, very important.
And this working together, this has been happening from the start. Everyone was very keen, interested from the get-go, or did this take some building?
Well, it has taken building, but since we started talking about this with partners, it has been a very enthusiastic response.
Oh,
so
yes,
you know, they have been interested, and of course each country takes a little. It's a little different setup depending on, you know, how the protected areas, etc., ministries or equivalents are set up in each country. But it has been very good.
Excellent. Lovely. And Melissa, what about you? Any lessons learned in the design of what HDR is doing? Anything you'd like to share?
We have many lessons learned. When we were designing this project, we were very skeptical about whether people would be motivated to become, you know, steward of their environment. And it turns out that yes, people were very motivated to be part of this new approach of market-led reforestation, and to see that they can restore their environment, and as well as making fair income. And I think that Haitians are acutely aware of the state of their environment, especially the people living in the remote areas, and they have been living with the impacts of climate change, including like severe storms and unpredictable rainy seasons. So the locals come to see themselves as guardian of the environment and working to create a balance and strengthen their own resilience through protection of the ecosystem, protection of the mangrove. And I think that this project is helping transform intention into action. And it's good that it was built on collaboration between among existing organizations, including non-governmental organizations. We have partners like FUPO-BIM. We have the private sector like AXISO, and we have community-based organizations like the Fishers Association, the Farmers Association. We also have international institutions like CCF being part of this project and working towards common objective of protecting local ecosystem.
And there's some strong partners that you have there.
Exactly. So this is
Yes.
one of the lessons learned, is that we have to involve everyone, and so that we can be as successful as possible.
Thanks, Melissa. Yeah, that's great. I want to just take a couple of questions from the audience because we have some in the chat before our final, and maybe that could be our final wrap-up question. So let us see. It is very busy in here. Christopher says, how can civil society foster and structure more lasting collaboration in adapting to climate change? How important is it for community organizations to partner with universities and other civil society partners to build capacity and scale community-based action? And I think that each of you had touched on that before, but I don't know if you want to add to that. And I'm just opening it up to the panelists, whoever wants to take that one. So how can civil society foster and structure more lasting collaboration in adapting to climate change?
As sort of the least qualified person on the panel to answer that question, I'll have a quick whack while the others are thinking of the real answer. So I mean, the thing that really struck me about the insurance program is that risk to natural ecosystems is just really implicit and really spread all over the public and private sectors. It affects businesses that rely on ecosystem services. It affects local communities. It affects governments as ultimately kind of responsible for this natural capital and tax revenues, etc. So all of that implicitness is, if you can bring some formalized framework to that, which is exactly what, you know, this risk financing instrument is actually trying to do, that can be kind of a lasting structure. Whether or not the financial instrument, I mean, I would say that it's good and lasting, but it's also those collaborations in just formalizing a risk management framework for something that's just spread around and implicit. So making that explicit. That's just my observation, almost from the outside.
Excellent. Thanks, Jack. Maria, Melissa, do you want to add to that? How important is it, for example, for community organizations to partner with universities and other civil society partners to build capacity and scale community-based action?
I'm sorry, I was muted.
That's okay.
I think it's just critical that civil society partners and make these long-lasting partnerships with other actors. That is what will give it permanence and feedback, right? It should be a continuous conversation in learning more and adapting to changes within them and changes outside in the environment. I just think it's critical to do it. And you know, in listening to Melissa, I think that, you know, what her program is doing is precisely that, right? Linking the different partners to different sectors and training. And I think we're doing a bit of that also in training these emergency response and training trainers and having them be in contact and updated, etc. It's the only way to have any initiative actually have any long-term possibility of permanence.
Yeah, that's very true, Maria. Melissa, do you have anything to add here?
Yes, I think involving all the partners in universities is very important for sustainability, and research is really important too. And with the university, we can promote more research and understand more the technicality of each implementation activity. And that's why Haiti Tech Sud is also a coalition of actors. In our coalition, we have all kinds of actors: universities, CBOs, we have international organizations, and so on. And members are impacting Haiti's environment in many ways. From stewarding the natural environment by investing in local production and rural infrastructure, to supporting agricultural value chain, reforesting and distributing hundreds of thousands of food and fruit trees, developing even clean energy and green markets, So they are all building like a circular economies and innovation to help transform waste into valuable resources, to promote awareness of protected areas and Haiti's natural richness. So it's really important to involve all the sectors, because the environment is not really about like the experts only and the NGOs
Not at
and
all.
yeah, it's everyone. So it's everyone, and we have to play our parts to make sure that we have a green, we have a healthy environment.
Excellent points, ladies. Excellent points. We have another question from Marcia Musgrove from TNC Bahamas. And she says, regarding the reef insurance, what criteria were used to identify suitable sites and what obstacles had to be overcome to get stakeholder buy-in? So what criteria were used to identify the suitable sites and what obstacles had to be overcome to get stakeholder buy-in?
So for the sites, a tool was developed with certain elements that allow the countries to discuss how to prioritize each country on its own. So for example, some elements were the quality of that reef or the reef health in that particular site. If it was in very good condition, big coral cover, etc. Whether it had a lot of economic attraction, for example, and was important for tourism, then it would be very important to restore quickly, right, in case of an event. So those were some of the criteria that were used, and each country had the same matrix, but each country decided how to weigh the different elements to decide which ones they would select. And the rest, the other part, how to, the stakeholder buy-in. Well, when we started, it was, just beginning the discussion of this is what we want to do, right? And we were fundraising to try to have these pilots ongoing, but telling them about what it would imply, right? The training, the hopefully having funding to pilot the insurance and to trial it. And this is where, yes, we had very, very interesting and positive outcome from the stakeholders in the 4 countries.
Thanks, Maria. Marcia, I hope that answers your question. I'm sure it does. Let's see if there's any other burning questions at this point. Annette says, she makes a comment, there is a similar insurance provision for the agriculture sector in St. Lucia and some other Caribbean countries called the Livelihood Protection Policy. Yeah, and I think, is that through CRIF? I think it might be. I recently heard about it.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yes, it is affiliated through CRIF and also the Munich, can't remember the full name, but the Munich Foundation, and also as part of the Caribbean Risk Adaptation and Insurance Initiative for the Caribbean. So it's a similar approach to the Mesoamerican Reef Fund.
Yes.
With the agreement, to pay out, I think within 7 days of
right.
the event. And clearly this is aimed at ensuring that, the agriculture sector can adapt to or bounce back as soon as there's any, effects from I think in this case is wind, can't remember the exact speed, that is the maximum speed, but definitely a similar approach to ensure adaptation and resilience and a quick bounce back for the agriculture sector.
Yes, thanks, Annette. All right, so ladies, what we could do is just, I'm trying to find my window here, sorry. There's just one more question that I have for you. So which would be the steps required to ensure proper financing for scaling up or replicating these initiatives? I'll just say again, what would be the steps required to ensure proper financing for scaling up and replicating these initiatives? You mightn't have all the answers now, but any thoughts on that? It's a hard one, I know.
Lots of thoughts. Maria Jose, it looks like you were good.
I can start, but it's the $1 million question, right? How do we make it sustainable? And it's something we've been discussing, internally, of course, with Willis Towers Watson. How do we do this? And I think there are several things. First, we have that first example of the insurance that was done by TNC for Quintana Roo, in which the state government is participating. That I think is a great example to understand that governments, may participate in the future. And the other is that this let's say this model that Willis Towers Watson is creating, that is building on that, is trying to actually fine-tune the cost of the insurance so that the payout actually responds to the damage that is being done. And that plus pooling it can make it more accessible in terms of cost. And that is also another way to attract governments, for example, to consider purchasing insurance for different aspects. And here we have a great tool that just came out for the region, and it was financed by the IDB. They financed the economic valuation of all the Mesoamerican reef. The 4 countries now. It's a new study, and I think this is important because it will help us share with government and private sector what is to be lost if we don't take action, right? And one action, having a financial mechanism such as this, can be a very good way to actually begin that restoration and recovering those environmental services. So this is, for private sector, for hotels that might have a reef in front where their tourists go snorkel, right? They understand the impact of losing that. And just this week we had another session to discuss about the insurance, and it was very, very interesting to learn that some PA co-managers are also seeing the importance of the insurance and them being partners possibly in purchasing that instrument, because they recognize the huge impact a big cyclone or hurricane can have on the reef and on the sustainability of the resources and of the communities, etc. So it will be about sharing the information, about talking, helping partners put together the mechanism so that they can purchase at government level, private sector, and even NGO level.
Thanks, Maria.
And just to add on that, I mean, in some ways, some of the hard work has already been done. We know how much it will cost. We know that how to connect it to the implementation of actual reef response. And so we have the full plan, basically. It's just about funding it, which when you have an actual plan is a lot easier than before you have even a budget estimate. So that means that in addition, we have a really clear picture of who the direct beneficiaries of this insurance are going to be. And not necessarily saying that, the divers who implement the response cost and whose incomes are smoothed after, or who implement the response after hurricane when their business is not necessarily thriving and are getting some income replacement from that, those are direct beneficiaries who have a real interest in supporting the program. And also it shows a real, value add of the kind of the environmental fund, to be honest, to be able to support the community in that way. And I think that, bringing together all the actual beneficiaries at this point, now that we have the plan and the budget, is a lot easier than when it was kind of an abstract idea.
That's great. Yeah, thanks, Jack. Melissa, any words from you?
Yeah, I would say that we have to start with countries' policies. How can we advocate to include more policies on financing projects that are aiming to protect natural resources, protecting the ecosystem? And I think we need more environmental call to action so that we can motivate global leaders to dedicate more resources to protecting the environment. And at a local level, I think it's good to involve the local authorities to design local policies that can that can promote more practices that encourage the protection of the environment, and also they can press the government, local population can press the government to allow more resources so that environmental resources can be better protected, and there are more ways to use them. And I think that's the first steps. And once you motivate all the sectors, and it will be easier to get the finance and work out all the details, the projects and everything.
You're right, Melissa. There are some very key and main steps. Yep. So what I am going to do before we get shot back into the main room is if I could open it up to anyone who has some comments, who would like to ask any questions of the panelists. But before I do that, I just wanted to thank every one of you and the panelists especially for sharing your insights. And I really wish you continued success in your various initiatives. Special thank you also to Ulrika for taking notes during this session. And then, you know, again, thank you as an audience for participating and joining this breakout group. But in the last 5 minutes, if there is anyone or anyone who would like to ask any questions, make any comments, please feel free to do so before we get shuttled into the plenary. Yeah, Annette says great presentations, and Marcia, thanks everyone for sharing their inspiring work. Anything, and Jyot, I know that this session would have been particularly interesting for you because for the EBA facility, you're always thinking about scaling up and replicating. So I know that this would have been particularly interesting for you and Ulrike.
Yes, very much so, Maria. Really good session. I was just, of course, listening because
yes.
generally talk too much. So I had enough to listen on this occasion, and really rich discussion, and I've benefited a lot, taking some really good notes. And we certainly will be following up with the presenters and with yourself, Maria. So thanks very much. Interesting session.
Great. Thanks, Christopher. Christopher says it was inspiring, informative, and insightful session. Anyone has any, or maybe I can ask the panelists for any last words, any last messages that you'd like to give in maybe 2 seconds.
Let's scale this up in the Insular Caribbean.
I like that. I like it. Yeah, so I think there are lots of lessons learned and challenges as well, especially challenges in Haiti, and ways to, you know, thinking about ways to overcome those as well, Melissa. And I can imagine that now with COVID, it's even harder. I mean, many of us have moved very much to the virtual online sort of platforms for doing our workshops and our capacity building. But I don't imagine that that is necessarily going to be very easy for you in Haiti. I also worry, I don't know what others feel like on this call, but I also worry about the environment after COVID and the facts that governments are going to push development, and that our environment may actually suffer as a result of that, and funds may be redirected to those sectors, especially in the region. Tourism, for example, that needs a lot of rebuilding post-COVID. So just those are some thoughts. Melissa, I saw you unmuted.
Yes, I was going to say that I think Haitians are less worried about the COVID pandemic than they are worried about the insecurity situation.
Right.
And I think the insecurity has taken over COVID, and people that talk less about COVID than they should. And with the recent event now that we've just lost our president, and we have lack of leadership now, and we don't know
Yes.
how the next few weeks going to be. So we are hoping for the best, and so that we don't end up with having lootings and stuff, and more violence in the communities.
Yes, and I should have started by saying, Melissa, that our thoughts are with you and with the Haitians at this time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? And you can unmute.
I know we're going to shoot across soon to plenary. Just wanted to add my voice to yours to offer condolences to the people of Haiti, as I did at the beginning, but specifically here to Melissa. And I know it has been really challenging working under the circumstances in Haiti. And Melissa, I'm sure this makes it even more complicated. So our hearts reach out to you, and please let us know how we can provide any assistance from the CBF side.
Thank you, Jacques.
All right. Well, it seems as though we can leave the breakout room now to go back into the plenary. So again, everyone, thank you very much to our 3 female, all women panelists. I thought this was quite a wonderful session, all female-led session. Thank you again for your presentations. It's very, very interesting work. I'm going to have to come visit you and see firsthand what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you for your wonderful moderation, Maria.
Excellent moderation, Maria. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much. And thank you, everyone. Take care. See you in the plenary.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.